Boom. We are here. Shout out to, Tim Babineau for that dope video. That if you only listen, go check it out. It's on the YouTube channel, the intro video. And the new music, and we're going into a new phase of our development. We're always trying to improve here. So we're making things, I'm taking a break for this month of December. So, we're just making adjustments, always improving. Some housekeeping. Let me put my phone on silent. Some housekeeping. If you're listening, go watch the podcast on YouTube, Big Moo TV, and we have a Hearts Over Everything playlist. We have the For the Culture playlist with the things that are for Black and Brown culture. We have Barrio Corner. They're not recording a lot of content right now, but they will be over the next few months. So go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. And we have all kinds of other content being created there over the next, probably January. Well, to start the quarter, we're gonna plan out in December. We're gonna plan out what kind of content we want to put out in December. Who's gonna be the first guest of the year? So creating content. Shout out to Crown with Excellence. Make racists scared to Make racists scared to catch these hands again. Punched a lot of racists in the face in my day. Shout out to Vlad for calling me a nigger in the woods and getting punched in the face. I was the bad guy for punching him in the face, of course. That was a problem. Shout out to them. Shout out to all the racists who got punched in the face by me over the years. Jimmy, you know who you are. I'm not gonna put their last names out, but there was a lot of them. And they're all Trump supporters now, which makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. You've been racist, and you've been identifying that way. You kind of liked me a little bit, but we're gonna get into that in a second. But I'm very excited for something that is coming up in the next week. An experience that I'll be participating in over the next week, and we're going to talk about it. I'm preparing for a Kambo ritual with Ahmad Adyani. He's going to come on the podcast next week. He'll be the guest, and on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I will be partaking in the frog venom and in the medicine and having a purge. So what Kambo is an Amazonian frog venom that, forces a physical purge, pooping and vomiting, that, expels toxins, and you can spiritually detox from pain and trauma. People use it to detox from heroin. People use it to, just have transition and move into another phase of development. And I'll talk about why I'm doing that a little bit. And then when Ahmad comes on the podcast, we'll talk about the experience, and we'll kind of have a full, not an assessment. That sounds so, clinical. We'll have a full breakdown of the medicine, the value of the medicine, what I experienced practically, and what Ahmad has seen. Then we'll get into like 5-MeO DMT and because he does that ritual, and he he's a medicine man. He's a medicine man, and he takes people through that process. Just so you guys know, Kambo is non-psychoactive. It is purely a purge, physical purge. So I'm not changing my sobriety date. And honestly, I want people in recovery who feel led in their spiritual life to partake in the medicine. I want to show them that, oh my God, you can do things that are outside the spectrum of clinical medicine and go through practice of healing, which I've done full weekend immersed 12-hour a day meditation workshops. I've had a lot of spiritual experiences. And then also in the church, went to church 4 days a week. I've been, in preparation for Kambo, I've been listening to a lot of spiritual music, whether it be worship or, Native American flutes or just things that are soothing and calming. The meditations that I'm gonna be journeying through this week are gonna be very important. I'm going vegetarian in preparation because I don't want to purge meat, and maybe stay vegetarian after the experience if I feel led. That's not the intention, but if I feel led, and if vegetarian, if this week a vegetarian feels good, then I'll stick with it. He wants me to go vegan, but I'm not prepared to go vegan. Like my thing with eggs, it's like chickens are going to lay eggs anyway. Like I'm eating eggs, and also the bodybuilding background. I just don't want, if I'm going to get rid of chicken, beef, pork, fish, I want to keep eggs as a protein source, and I'll get back into my egg whites and do a lot of full eggs for all the, amino acids in the full eggs and all the fats and just I want to stay healthy. And then I supplement really, really well. And I tell all my vegan clients and vegetarian clients that if you're going to be, a plant-based eater, you should supplement well because of, we have monocrop farming. So we're growing the same crops on the same plots of land year in, year out, and just depleting the soil of all of its nutrients. So even your vegan diet, you're not getting all the necessary nutrients that you would want. So on a nutritional level, being vegan or vegetarian is not the healthiest because you think you're getting all the vitamins and minerals that the earth produces. But unless you're, going completely organic and doing regenerative participating in producing from regenerative farming, you're probably not getting all the vitamins and nutrients. I supplement really well. It's very important to me. I supplement every day, never fails. With any other medication I take my supplements as I take as I would take any medication. So I have it, all my, Monday through Sunday scheduled out in a pill case. And each week refill that. So I just take my handful of supplements with any medication I take. So yeah, I'm gonna also in this Kambo ritual, I will be purging my medication, not getting off of my medication. I don't suggest anybody get off theirs. So I'm not gonna get off of it. I'm still gonna take it each night, but it will be purged out of my system each day, and we'll see what toxins are in my body. And really, for me, what came up this year, I want to end the year releasing my sexual trauma. My sex addiction and my sexual trauma has been at the forefront this year. It's really been at the forefront this year, and it's something that I really explored. And it didn't make, I have a podcast coming out Friday with James LaRusso, who has a very interesting story. I'm not even going to give any hints, but it was one of the best podcasts I've done, and they just get better and better. But on his podcast, we talk about his sex life and his sexual experience, and I share a little bit about mine. But it's been at the forefront, and the reason I bring him up is because it took me 5, 6, 7 years in recovery to really uncover my sexual trauma and my sexual identity and sexual experience and healthy sex life and times of not having sex. I haven't had sex in about 2 months, and then not watching porn. I have blockers on my phone and on my and on my computer that stop me from watching porn because watching porn is detrimental to my psyche, and I think it's detrimental to a lot of people's psyche. Some of the things that it brings up an unhealthy relationship to what sex even is. What stepson, daughter porn pushing boundaries. Trans porn pushes, not that there's anything wrong with these things, but it pushes boundaries. More violent porn, rape porn, anal gaping, prolapse asshole. You're just pushing boundaries, pushing boundaries. And that's not, especially me in a relationship, that's not what a normal sex life looks like. Not everybody says I'm not an all pepper diet, but a normal sex life isn't a lot of times isn't fisting and anal gaping. That's never been my experience, in my years of being sexually active. And a lot of people are like, what the fuck, So porn really pushes those boundaries. So I block that on my computer, so I'm not even tempted. I don't even look at sites like Twitter or Reddit that show pornographic videos. It's just a bottom line behavior for me. And that's been at the forefront this year. It's been something I've tackled. I work with a sex addiction therapist in particular, someone who works with people who are hyper sex addicts, which I don't think I'm severe, but I think it's something that has really fucked up my life. And part of what I learned about, when I talk about the world and I talk about worldly things, that all the ego that I talk about, because I'm getting tired of talking about some of this shit, but all those things that I talk about and suffering and all that, sex was at the forefront of all of that stuff for me. The ego and my sponsor calls it image management, reputation management, dressing a certain way, looking a certain way, the fitness, the this, the that, all led into hypersexuality and identifying with the ego. And when I'm in ego and feeling real good about myself, and the girls are paying attention, that risks my substance abuse sobriety. If I'm not able to change my sex conduct as a sober man, I'm sure to drink, and to drink for me is to die. So I have to change, and I have to always be, willing to grow in a sexual manner. And for me, that's been at the forefront this year. So that's something that I want to purge. I want to purge trauma-wise, doing this Kambo experience with Ahmad. Is 3 days. Some people do Kambo 1 day, but for him, it's 3 days of, with him, it's 3 days of purging, 3 days of ritual, 3 days of immersion into that life. And I'll be podcasting in the mornings before my ritual, so I can talk about a little bit the day prior, what my experience was on my monologue on Monday, kind of what my experience was on Sunday. Also doing a lot of personal development. Doing some like a 4-week workshop starting next weekend. That's going to be really an immersion into emotional intelligence. A lot of my friends have done it. Jesse's done it. James, who we have on coming soon, has done it. So, we're just going into the holiday season with a certain mindset. We're going into the holiday season with a certain mindset and kind of releasing myself of the baggage of the year, even though this year has been the best year of my life. Another thing I want to purge is my identity to this addiction. This year I've talked about addiction so much, and I'm so tired of talking about it. And for me, identifying every day is a humbling experience. Working in the field, it's at the forefront of my mind quite often. So it's just the lens I view the world through. But I'm tired of talking about it. I'm just tired of talking about it. So I want to purge that identity a little bit and just feel anew. I want to feel anew. And even my pastor friends and my church friends were telling me, I wasn't prepared to think this, but they were like, you got to stop identifying there, entirely. You're not, and that's not who you are. It's not who you are. And, practicing, recovery principles in all my affairs, it feels like who I am. But, over my recovery, I've become a multifaceted human being. and I want to identify that. And there's meetings where I could identify every day as an alcoholic and a drug addict. So I still do that once a day. And that I think leads into that identity, is because every day I say, I'm Eric and I identify. I'm Eric and I identify. And sometimes I do that twice a day. When you do that 7 days a week, but it's bleeding into this podcast. And I don't want this to be a recovery podcast. I want it to be a hope podcast. There's so many recovery podcasts that are out there. I think I speak about things outside of recovery. I think the guests I have are outside of recovery. I think the guests I have are inside recovery, so it's not just my experience you're hearing over and over and over again. It's other people's experience. But another thing, and the last thing I hope to get from this Kambo ritual is the release and the purge, the guttural purge of my ego, because it is such a detriment to me. It is such a detriment to me. It really is. My pride, selfishness, and self-centeredness is the root of all of my problems. All of them. The sex addiction, even the drug addiction, me serving me. My fitness life was me serving me. I don't want it to bleed into my family life. I want to serve my family. Someone told me that, Eric, the first people you could be of service to is your family. Someone told me that early in my recovery, and I want to be more of service to my family, and I want to be more of service to my clients. And that's part of what I love about, working in the recovery field, is that I'm entirely outside of myself. Even though working in the field is not part of my recovery, it's my job. It keeps me outside of myself. You're fully immersed in somebody else's addiction or recovery. And I need that. I need to be outside of myself. So that's another intention I want to set. I want to, the old beliefs got to go. Those old beliefs got to go. I want my 30s to be the healthiest years of my life. And I want to drop that identity, those identities that aren't serving me. Okay, let's move on. So I'm excited to work with Ahmad Adyani, and he'll be on next week. That'll come out next Friday, and we'll fully dive deep into plant medicine. And we had Jessica Rector on talking about psilocybin ritual and her experience and my experience. So we're going, even though we're having people in recovery, I'm drug positive. Speaking of that, Oregon just decriminalized all drugs in this election, which is a beautiful thing. The law and order percentage of people are going to say everybody's going to go there and do drugs. And yes, there will be a boom in drugs over the next year and multiple years. But you dumb fucks are short-sighted. You don't understand. And that's why people think other people, like more conservative mindset, is dumb, because you just don't know. You just don't know that decriminalization of drugs and making drugs not a criminal offense actually treats drug addicts. And I think I'm gonna do a documentary on this. I think that's the next project. I think next year, I wanna film a documentary on substance abuse and the recovery process, and hopefully it'll follow me through my recovery process here in San Diego, and the recovery community here, whoever's willing to participate. Of course, following the traditions of 12-step, so not keeping anonymity and blah 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 blah. But taking people through the recovery community here, and then taking people back to New York. People who are still active in recovery, people who are on, Suboxone maintenance, and then talking to the parents of the children of the kids and the men and women who have died, and hearing their experience and hearing their recovery. So, and then talking to my own mom and talking to her about her experience, and talking to my brother about his experience. It's just, I want to do a documentary next year. But the decriminalization of drugs is the Portugal model. What Portugal did was decriminalize all drugs, and they turned addiction from a criminal issue to a public health issue. Oregon has quite the heroin problem, so does Seattle. So does California. The whole country is kind of destroyed by the opiate epidemic. And there was that big lawsuit with Purdue Pharma where they're being sued for promoting this opiate epidemic with OxyContin. That was the end of my use, like 10 years ago. That was a big deal. So that's actually a beautiful thing, the decriminalization of marijuana, and not only decriminalization, but the legalization of marijuana. So I'm going to buy stock in marijuana over the next couple months. That is something I'm going to invest in. I think many Black people should invest in legalized cannabis because we have been particularly affected by the war on drugs. There's people who are serving 25 years for cannabis, life sentences for cannabis. I think all those people should be free. I think all those people should be freed from incarceration, because look, it's just, now that it's fucking legal, now, you still got to stay in prison. You still got to stay in prison even though it's legal now. And we were short-sighted and ignorant then. And the war on drugs has just been a disaster. We have not won. And in my thought process is, if we legalize and decriminalize all drugs, it'll actually, it'll destroy the trade between South America and all the drugs here in America, and it'll ruin the market. It'll just disrupt the market. So that's my logic there, and I think that's the logic of the cities who decriminalized, narcotics. There's been a lot of jokes like, "Oh, all the heroin addicts are moving to Oregon," and there will be a boom. There will be a boom, but you gotta think big, and you gotta think long term. And what we're doing for addicts and alcoholics is not necessarily working entirely. So that's that. Before we get into the president and the new updates there, I want to just shout out my brother Alex Reyes. He is running for city council in representation of Long Island City, Astoria, Ravenswood, Left Rack, Sunnyside, he's running, and for me, I would call it Long Island City. So he's running for city council there, and he is a Queens native. He knows Queens. He grew up in Queens. He is bred by Queens, as am I, and he's fulfilling the promise of, we all knew, some people, we talk about, politics all the time. And I'm very excited for where we're going with politics, because there's people we have a new generation of politicians coming up who have watched the Trump presidency, who have watched perpetual warfare, who have watched perpetual warfare, who have watched the financial crisis, who have watched 9/11, who have seen the drug war, who have seen mass incarceration, who have seen part of the crack epidemic. We have people who have grown up through these. And let me just tell you, so we have a pandemic right now. There's always something. And a few podcasts back, we talked about it. There's always some sort of chaos, and we navigate each form of chaos. And that's what makes this pandemic so interesting, is that more people die of the flu than will ever die of the coronavirus. So it makes it interesting, and that's why with our president, I think it was so poorly managed in so many ways. But I also am sketched out by like how people even thought to run it. It was interesting how we even thought to manage it. But I tell people, you don't know how to do this shit either. So there's a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks who are just like, I would, have a lot of opinions. You dumb fuck. You dumb fuck. You're a plumber. Shut the fuck up. You're shut the fuck up. There's a lot of my friends in New York who I knew were racist. Like I talked about in the beginning, I knew were racist, and I just allowed them to be racist because I hated myself. But you're all a bunch of fucking blue collar workers. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Let the smart people talk about it. And I talk about it. I'm a dumb fuck too. I don't know. I don't know how this shit works, but I'm definitely smarter than your dumbass, and I definitely have thought it out a little bit more. You clearly haven't thought it out. And that's why people think that Trump people are racist, because they didn't think that they're identifying with an ideology. They're not identifying with the truth. They're not identifying with logic. And that's why the Democratic Party is the party of intellectuals, college professors, scientists. They vote Democrat. So yeah, I understand. And they're like the elite. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're smart. We're smart people. Think things through. And you're voting because bring back the coal jobs. You dumb fuck. Learn something. Learn something. Learn a trade. Learn a new trade. And that's one thing I'm excited about. We have a new president elect. Joe Biden won Pennsylvania, and he won the more electoral votes, 270 to like 214, and he won the popular vote by 5 million, I think. And he's winning the popular vote. He won Arizona, he won Pennsylvania. Georgia's up for grabs for the first time in a long time. Georgia maybe flip blue. Like people really showed up and showed out. Black people really showed up and showed out. Black women especially really showed up and showed out. And Dave Chappelle said it. Black people are going to save the day again. We're going to save the day again. We built this country. Here we are saving the fucking day, especially Black and brown people. I think more Latinos voted, I think, early than voted at all in the previous election. And young people came out and voted. 18-year-olds to 30-year-olds came out and voted for this, for the new president-elect. And we have our first female vice president. So I'm excited. Do I like Joe Biden? No. It's possible to not like Joe Biden and to not be entirely excited and not be skeptical of our new political structure and our new political, future. I'm skeptical, but I'm hoping that more people will actively participate in democracy because we see how quickly democracy can be threatened. And that's and I've said it so much on here, and this is where I'll finish. Donald Trump is an ideology. Donald Trump is not a politician. He's an ideology. People with your big ass flags, Donald Trump flags, you're a weirdo. You're fucking weird. And the fact that you're like the delusion that he's the greatest president we've ever had, he is your king. He is not a politician. He is your king. And he was a threat to democracy. He undermined democracy and the process through and our our logistic and our government democratic process. He undermined it through his whole presidency, whether he was accused rightfully or not, whether he was reported biasly or not. He was a danger to democracy. That's why he had to go. That's why he has to go. And guess what? He's not going to leave. He's not going to leave like a gentleman because he's not decent. And that's what I vote for. And we're going to go right into the next topic, wokeness. I don't like the idea of wokeness. Like that, who's woker than I have friends who are like, I can't even talk to you, dog. I can't even talk to you. You're the language police. I can't even fucking talk to you. The wokeness. But one thing about how I'm quote unquote woke or conscious, I would say I'm a conscious person, is I'm decent. I'm decent. And as a progressive, not even a liberal, I don't want to call myself a liberal, and I slip up on the podcast all the time because it's just the language that I'm getting used to. But I'm a progressive, and what I want is inclusion. And a lot of times what you hear from conservatives and Donald Trump supporters, they say, I don't like PC culture. Do you know what you don't like? You don't like that you can't say nigger anymore. You don't like that you can't say fag anymore. You don't like that you can't say that's gay anymore. Because that's political correctness. You can't say stuff anymore. That's literally what it is. You want to be politically correct. And you know what that means? That means inclusion, you fuck. That means inclusion. And that's a problem for you because you only want people like you represented. One thing that Joe Biden said that was the right answer, and this is why we need certain types of politics. He said, I want to make America that works for everyone. Donald Trump, no. He only wanted, and Trump supporters said, I don't care if you don't like him. He represents me. And the dumb lib, you hear, how many times do you hear people say the dumb libs or the Dems or whatever are so stupid? You don't want me represented. That's a problem for democracy, you fuck. You know? Fuck, man. So for me as a progressive, I want inclusion. But sometimes we take it too far. Sometimes if you say the wrong thing, which is say the wrong thing all the time, you can be set on fire. They'll literally light you on fire and say, not literally, they'll light you on fire and say, you're done, you're finished, you're out of here. And that's not dope either. That's not dope either. But as a progressive, here's what I care about. New tech. I love the idea that California is not selling gas cars in the next 10 years. Love that idea. The next 15 years. Love it because move the fuck on. Move forward. That's all I care about. Move forward. Like I say, this is the best time to be black. Move forward. New types of jobs. Cold jobs, get them out of here. New types of jobs. If that means learning a new skill, move forward. I challenge you, learn a new skill that is more progressive for our new economy. During the Industrial Revolution, guess how many motherfuckers lost their job? Lots. The automotive crisis, the automotive transformation to more an automated experience. Have a new job. Don't just say, "Oh, I can't do that one skill that I'm good at, so I'm over." No, and this might be insensitive, but you can. You can learn a new trade. So progressive, move forward, more inclusion. The more rights for me as a black man, the more rights for women, the more rights for the LGBT community, the more rights for other brown people, Latino people, Native people, Asian people. The more rights for me, the more rights for everybody else. If that may be abortion, abortion is a black issue. Abortion is an LGBT issue. You know, that's an issue for all people, all marginalized people. And then I was listening to a podcast today, and a white woman, of course, who I love. She's a personality that I love. She talked about inclusion. Oh, I'm not represented, so it's a problem. No, I want more representation too. I don't want our government to reflect all white people. I want old white people. A lot of you motherfuckers, get out of here. You don't look like me. You don't talk like me. You don't care about the things that I care about. Get the fuck out. And that's why AOC is the shit, because she represents the Bronx and she represents those people. That's why she was reelected. And the whole squad was reelected because they're representing people who weren't typically represented. Old white people shouldn't dictate the entire country. And that's why I say the country works exactly how it was designed to work, because who was supposed to run the show? Rich white landowners were supposed to run the show before, and guess who runs the show now? Rich white landowners. And guess whose vote they want suppressed? Young people and brown people. It's worked effectively, and I want progress moving away from that, you fuck. So that's why I'm a progressive, not a liberal. I am socially liberal with ideas in the sense that, yeah, everything I just mentioned was socially liberal. You know, but when I say I'm a progressive, I mean it in the literal sense, moving forward. No, make America great again. Make America great again. When was America great for me? It's the best it's ever been for me today. So no backwards. I don't want to go backwards to the 50s when when you were chasing people out of neighborhoods, beating people, fucking people schools weren't integrated. Some schools weren't integrated. Calling a nigger, there was still lynchings happening. COINTELPRO ruining leaders in the black community. It was just fucking a nightmare. So the 50s, and this is where I say the 50s were good representation for you, but not other people. You fucks. The right to marry for interracial relationships, I think was done in the late 60s or 70s. Black and white people couldn't even marry each other. Progress. Immigration is difficult. I don't know the answers with immigration. How are we doing on time? I don't know the answers for immigration, but let's not put people in cages. 34? Damn, that's a long time. But immigration is tough. I don't know the answers, but the idea of putting, brown people in cages, this is not a good idea. And Obama did the same thing. So it's not just Donald Trump. Donald Trump got blamed for that, and that's a Democratic thing. Obama was not perfect. He was not my king. That's the thing. He's a politician. He's not my king. So he did things bad, wrong. Obama dropped more drone bombings than any other president before. Damn, we flew through this podcast. So let's jump into um, uh, you know, a theme that I have followed. It started with a Bill Burr joke. And those are my heroes. They're free speakers, free thinkers. They say everything that you're not supposed to say and you're not allowed to say, and they inspire me. Those are my heroes. I listen to all comedic podcasts where there's intellect involved and there's logic involved, and it's very objective. It's a distaste or disdain for the right and the left, or it's criticism of the right and the left. And that's what I try to do. I try to be critical of both sides. I want to be objective. I want to think of, what are my values? But I also want to think like, oh, let me understand another side of things. Let me understand that there are truths in conservatism that we should all respect. And there's truths in progressive and the Democratic Party that we should respect. And I like that idea of being balanced. But in this Bill Burr joke, he talks about we shame. We're not allowed to fat shame. We're not allowed to gender shame, or the idea of shame is gone. But I will tell you, and this is referring back to my addiction, sex addiction. Let's talk about my sex addiction. The idea that I couldn't look at myself in the mirror because of my sex conduct, guess what? It has transformed my life. That feeling of shame. And when you are naked in the mirror and you're overweight and you are disgusted by yourself in the mirror, that shame is positive. That's going to be the shame that catapults you into the next dimension. Negative emotions are positive. They're negative emotions in the sense that pain, suffering, depression, all those things can be positive if you change your mindset. It's not the way you're thinking of it. It's not it's not the emotion, it's the way you're thinking of it. It's not the stimuli, it's your relationship to the stimuli. And living in shame is detrimental because that keeps you in a cycle. I hate myself. And I know that cycle very well. Let that bitch breathe. That keeps you in a cycle. And that keeps you in the shame behavior. Because sometimes for me, the sexual behavior relieves the shame for a period of time. Then I feel the shame again. And then the shame subsides, and then I need to feel different. So I participate in the behavior, and then the shame ensues. I use $12 words. Good use though. But living in shame is bad. But because it stops you of your progression. But shame changes behavior. When I look for me, my emotional bottom in my recovery was at 4.5 years sober. When I really started taking recovery seriously, at 4.5 years sober, and I couldn't look at myself in the face. And I was like, this is not heroin. This is me. This is me. Right now, I don't like my physique. I don't like the way my body is. I don't like that when I lean forward, my belt like squeezes into my belly. I don't like that. But we just bought a home gym. We're building the home gym this week, and I'm going to work out regularly, and I'm going to go vegetarian, and I'm going to make changes because I don't like the way I look and feel. Negative emotions are not inherently bad. If you use them right, they should change behavior. If you don't feel good when you get into 12-step, you get a sponsor and you get some solutions. You don't feel good about your business, you get a business coach and they help you either get a new job or change your business. You don't feel good about the way you look in the mirror, so you get a trainer and you change your behavior or you start working out. Shame is not bad. Negative emotions are not bad. It's your relationship to it, and it's the way you're looking at it. That's the title of the podcast. Shame is a motivator. I've done a whole workshop on that. Let's talk about your shame. Let's fully acknowledge it. Let's talk about the emotional shame that comes along with the physical shame, or the top layer. So let's talk about the conscious shame and then break into the subconscious shame that keeps you in that cycle. Let's flip it on its head and let's use that to propel you forward. If you feel bad enough, you're willing to go to any length to change. So shame is a motivator. Shame is not bad. I don't know what the title is going to be, but it's going to relate somewhere around that because that's the meat and potatoes of this podcast. Meat and potatoes. is that shame is not necessarily a bad thing. It's the way you're looking at it. Mindset is important. And that's a big thing for me as a coach, is mindset. It's not the stimuli, it's my relationship to the stimuli. With alcoholism, there's logic that they say like it's a, allergy of the mind, an allergy of the body and an obsession of the mind. That's what we hear. That's what we're taught, is that when I put drugs and alcohol in my body, that something happens to me that's bodily different than other people's. I'm obsessed and I have an allergy that makes me act fucking crazy. And I'm spiritually sick, and that's the root of my problem. That's one school of thought. But also a school of thought for me is that being around alcohol, I've been to 420 parties where people are just smoking weed the whole time, and all the food was pot-based, marijuana-based food. I didn't eat it, didn't participate, but I was there. And I was able to stay sober. I've been around people who have shot dope in the last couple minutes, and I didn't shoot dope. And I go to bars and I spend time with normies who drink all day. My girl drinks in the house. My girl's doing psilocybin in the next couple months. People can do drugs, and I'm not affected because I'm neutral. My relationship to myself and my relationship to the stimuli has changed. It's a mindset shift. It's important. How are we doing on time? We're going to this is going to be an hour podcast. What time is it? Okay. Perfect. We're going to wrap it up in 10. And some of this stuff we're going to talk about next week. But something that really made sense to me, and we're going to go right into this, and we'll finish with this in 10 minutes. That idea that the doctor talked about in that article I read and linked a couple weeks ago. He talked about in our spiritual walk, we never arrive, and that really stuck with me. I've never arrived. Even when things go really well, when I get that $20,000 check, it's like, I have not arrived. This is just a positive spot in this journey that I'm on, right? Like, this is just a positive spot in this journey that I'm on. I have not landed on the moon. I'm still on the journey and the race to forever, to consciousness, to the next galaxy. I've not arrived. But one thing that makes that dial in is that and what I've learned is that I don't have to be right. And when I talk about meditation, blah, 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 meditate, peace, boop, boop, boop. One thing that I learned in meditation is that I don't have to be right. And this ties this bitch all the way back together to politics. I don't have to be right. Like, people have been getting into it with me, like, not getting into it, but trying to be like, this is the best president we've ever had. This is the best. We're all going to regret this. I don't need to convince you, you fuck. I'm not going to try to convince you. With my girl, I'm not going to try to fight to be right. Would you rather be happy or would you be right? Would you rather be right? I don't need to be right. And I always talk about levitating on hoes. If you have wronged me, wrong me then. I want peace. So I'll probably make amends to you. That racist guy that I punched in the face, who called me a nigger in the park, I made amends to him. All those kids who called me a nigger and chased me out of neighborhoods, I made amends to them. Do you know why? Because I float on bitches, dog. Because I don't need to be right. I want peace. I'd rather peace than being right. And that ties in politically. I don't need to be right politically. I don't need to be right in my relationship. Sometimes I want to be right because it's nice to feel right. It's to feel superior, feel superiority, to feel vindicated, to feel vindicated, to feel heard, sometimes being right. And I think in a healthy relationship to the people around you, you can not be right, but you can be heard. That can be a title of the podcast. You can not be right, but you can be heard. And I think for me, obviously, I want to be heard. I have a podcast, so I want to be heard. I'm self-centered, and I want people to understand me. I've talked about that on here, but I don't need to be right. And I'm okay publicly being wrong. I'm okay to be on this podcast publicly and to be wrong and change my mind and explore a topic over an hour or explore a topic over 45 minutes and shift the way I feel about something, But we'll finish with this and we'll wrap this up, play us out. You know, I don't need to be right. Shame can motivate you. Shame can change the way you view the world. It's not the stimuli. It's the way you it's the way you interface with the stimuli. Like we talked about a couple weeks ago, it's not the world. It's the way you interface with the world. It's the way you view the world. Yeah, but feel shame. Look in the mirror and say, ugh, and then change it. Look at your sex life and be ashamed of your sex life and say, ugh, I don't like this part about me. So I'm going to change it. You don't need to be right, dude. You don't need to be right. Would you rather be right or be happy? Would you rather be right or be happy? So we'll finish with that. If you're listening to this podcast, again, go to YouTube YouTube and subscribe and watch the podcast. Room and Board does a great job producing this podcast. Shout out to Crown of Excellence. Make racists scared to catch these hands again. I'll still punch you in the face. You want to be racist? I'll still smack the shit out of you. I'm just kidding. I levitate on bitches. We out of here.